Hey, you guys, welcome to Regardless. I am so excited to have you here. Regardless is the go-to hub for tips and tools to keep you going, babe, reminding you that you've got this. Hi, gorgeous.
Hello.
Welcome to Regardless, my love. I am so excited to have you here, and I'm going to give you a little bit of an intro, so if you're ready for it.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, everyone, welcome. This is Isabella Biscarini, and she is the founder of True Tone Swimwear. She's been really mentioned and blasted all over the internet by New York Weekly, also by Montecito Journal, which is just has such a special place in my heart because I went to UC Santa Barbara. So seeing that on your Instagram, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so seeing that on your Instagram, I was like, yes, it's a massive deal. And really, you know, the essence of this conversation is that you started this company, babe, and it went viral on TikTok.
Right.
Like that changed the game for you. And I want to dig deep today because I think there are so many aspiring entrepreneurs out there, especially as women, and looking at you, I want to know like the how, the why, because like I'm here learning as well.
Yeah.
And so if you don't mind sharing with us, like what made you want to create True Tone? Like story tell with me a little bit.
It's probably different than most stories,
Yeah.
maybe, just because it was during COVID and everything. So I'm a senior in college in Santa Barbara.
Wait,
and
what?
Yeah.
Wait,
At
Isabella-
Westmont.
Okay, wait, I think we talked about this.
Did we? Maybe.
I think we did. Okay.
But that's how the whole Montecito Journal thing happened.
'Cause you know
Anyways,
people there.
no, they reached out because the daughter of the Montecito Journal had a bikini, and they were like, "Wow, yeah." But yeah, went to school in Montecito, and then senior year was during the whole COVID situation, and everything was online.
Yeah.
So I decided to like use my time wisely, and I was a business major. Thought I'd do something in the finance world long term, and I always had this tan through idea in my head. Back in high school, I was into swimming. My dad's a professional swimmer, so always loved the ocean, pool, tanning, all that. And so senior year of college, I was like, if I don't do it now, I'm never going to do it. Yeah. Someone else is going to do it. I'm going to be super mad about it. So yeah, that's how I kind of got into it. I did all the research. It took 2 years, so it wasn't just like a, overnight thing. But took 2 years to develop the fabric with a fabric engineer. And then after that, yeah, like you said, TikTok really changed the game for me. And that was, I guess, 2 years. Let's see, 2021. And that's kind of when TikTok was really taking off. And I started,
timing.
Yeah. And I was not expecting like much from it because I had started a month prior to launching, and I was like, okay, let's see where this goes. Like, wasn't getting that many views or anything. And then I think around like 30 days, I was in Hawaii with my friends, and I had launched that week, did a whole launch event, and then went to Hawaii for like a couple of days.
Love.
Because I was like,
Why not?
And the first night we're there, my friends are on TikTok, and they're like, Isa, like, oh my God, babe, go look at your account. And like the numbers are just going. I think that one ended up being like 37 million views. But I was like, oh my gosh. And then I go to at the time I had like my notifications for orders.
Wow.
And I was like, oh my gosh, like I don't even know if I have the inventory for this.
Yeah.
So I kind of freaked out because obviously, overnight success or viral videos like are a blessing but also a curse in a way if you're not ready for it. Luckily I had a warehouse where I was storing everything, but no employees, like nothing. So I had like 10 of my friends all packing orders when I got back. But it was definitely a surreal moment, and I think even now it's hard to really, I don't know if most people feel this way, but it just like never sunk in because you're always like working on something, so it never feels real in a way. I don't know. It's kind
like
of like
imposter syndrome.
Yeah, it's kind of this weird like, okay, anything can fail at any time. So like I'm or maybe I'm more of a realist in that way of like, I just look at numbers and like just things that matter, I guess. I'm not like, oh, you know, now I'm gonna risk it all, and I don't know. Yeah.
But it's so interesting because I feel like you did have to risk it all in a way, right?
No, definitely. I had to pay for my college tuition. Like, I was working 4 a.m. shifts at the Four Seasons as a front desk agent because I thought I was going to be in hotel management in some capacity. And yeah, so that was kind of like, I'm going to risk it all. I mean, I guess my logic was you can always make more money. Like, I'm going to invest all of this. I'm still in college. I, in a sense, have everything to lose, but nothing to lose at the same time. Like, I don't have a family yet. This is the time to do it. Like, if I do it in 10 years, it could be a bigger backlash or a bigger risk. So
it's so funny. I always say to myself, like, when I'm feeling down financially or stressed out, I always say that this is the brokest I will ever be. Right. So like, gotta try it now. But like, on the real, what's so cool about your experience and like what I'm picking up on is that you had a choice, right? Like, you could be on the sidelines and have this dream in your head and wake up every morning and go to bed thinking about it, because that's something that I totally experienced as an entrepreneur. Or you could freaking get into the game, put your skin in the game, and freaking start it. And you did that. And, you know, I look at your Instagram and we look at True Tone and we see all of this success, but like, we don't hear about the journey before that. And of course, on social media, like, we don't know what happened before we see an influencer or before we see Aloe Yoga or a brand that we look up to. And I want to talk to you about that. Of course. So, you know, obviously starting this, it seems like there was some sort of fear. Like, what was your experience pushing forward regardless of the fear?
I would say I'm a very spontaneous person, so I don't really think, I wouldn't say long term. I'm not a pessimist, so I'm a very optimistic but also realist person. So I'm like, okay, if this doesn't work out, like, there's a million other things I could do. Like, if this doesn't work out, like, I wasn't thinking this is going to blow up. Like, I would say I was confident in the product, but I wasn't expecting to be an overnight success. I was like, if I push the ads, that will make it work. Like, all these factors will make it a success, but it'll take, you know, at least a year to see some progress. So I think not being overly, I think I see a lot of people that are like, oh, this is the best idea ever. It's gonna, you know, people just expect immediate sales. So like, you have to be in the right mindset of like, be confident in your product and don't expect it at the same time to be, you know, an overnight success. Because I see so many influencers too, like, starting brands, and they assume, you know, having the following will automatically mean sales, but I don't see that being successful very often.
That's really interesting.
So I think it was a risk, but at the same time, like, no one else was doing it, so I was like, this is a good idea, and if I don't do it, like, I'm gonna be mad at myself. And like I said, I had the time, because school was online, so I was like, I'm the type of person that needs to be always doing something, so I was like, I'm just gonna do the research, see if it's even like possible, and then go from there. So it's like a gradual process, I
think like your experience is something that we can apply even if we're not in college and we're out working in corporate America. There is a way to do it realistically or coming from a place of like logic or safety.
Right.
And I think that is like a great kind of like medicine to your fear in a way, where it's like, okay, if I'm going to start this company, that I will start it when I have financial stability or have an income. Because it is really scary when you're dropping everything in your life, all the stability that you do have to pursue something. So I think like timing, of course, was like on your side, but you did it in a way that wasn't like you were risking it all. I mean, you did, but
yes and no. I mean, I truly spent like all my money doing this. But at the same time, I was like, okay, I've saved, you know, this for something, and this is the something I guess I'll use it on. And like I said, I am ambitious. So like if that didn't work out, it's like, okay, I'm going to, you know, get a 9 to 5 in the meantime and like work my butt off to save for the next thing. But yeah, I don't know. For some reason, I wasn't scared of taking that risk, because I mean, everyone always says like you have to risk it to make it, essentially. So I've never seen an entrepreneur like not risk anything and be successful. So I think it's just one of those things that I thought was a given when entering the industry or field. So it wasn't, like I said, I think if you're passionate about what the product is, and nowadays it's so easy to, like, it's so different than it used to be. Like, even making samples is so much easier than it used to be. And, like, finding connections and, you know, I feel like there's so many resources now that weren't available prior to this whole era. So that's
It's
also
crazy.
huge.
Question for you, because even with my podcast, like, obviously I've pumped in, like, money to set up this studio, and I'm being honest, like, it is very expensive.
Oh, yeah.
And then I look at my life and I'm wanting to keep up with my girlfriends or friends with like going out, drinks, dinner, whatever. And it's like, okay, it can feel really lonely being an entrepreneur sometimes, because I feel like some of my friends just aren't having the same entrepreneurial experience where they are investing into their business. So it's like, how do you emotionally, but also like financially keep up in a way with your friends and being in your 20s while investing into this baby? Like, on an emotional level, it's freaking hard.
Yeah. Honestly, like, it's
hard.
almost a blur how fast, like, everything went.
Yeah.
But I moved from Santa Barbara to Newport to work at Restoration Hardware, like, so random, to, like, learn more about design and everything. And did design consulting there. And, yeah, moved to Newport. Didn't really know anybody. Had, like, 1 or 2 friends. And moved in with 2 guys. And from there, like, expanded my friend group. And, like, I love Orange County now. But for 2 years, I really, like, wouldn't say yeah, it was definitely lonely. But I was working on something I was passionate about. And also, like, was juggling a job and, like, starting this new thing. And had, like, a core group that I would hang out with, but I wouldn't say and it was COVID, so I think it was easier to, like, feel lonely but know that everyone else was feeling lonely at the same time. So honestly, that was kind of a blessing in disguise.
Yeah,
I haven't even, like, thought about
no,
that
and
much.
it is weird because you think about COVID and, like, massive things happen for people then. I mean, I hear so many people started businesses, relationships. Like, you move in with someone, it's like, you know, right away, like, is this going somewhere or is it not?
Right.
Like, I have that experience.
Yeah.
But that is super cool.
But that was, like, my time to grind, because I was like, okay, I have FOMO. Like, if all my friends are doing something, like, I'm going to be there. I love throwing parties. I love having people over. So I think that was a perfect timing for me to spend time just, like, working on myself, working on my brand. And luckily, so it was the perfect timing in my case. But I mean, it's different for everyone. Like, there's other, you know, brands that would require in-person meetings and travel, and so it's really different for everyone.
Yeah. And the fact that you were alone through all of this, not alone, I mean, you had your roommates, but I'm curious, what did your support system look like? Because I think your community of people around you, when you're creating something that's like, I'm just going to see if it sticks. Like, that's hard. So what did your community look like during this period of your life?
Honestly, I didn't really tell that many people I was working on this, because I think it was this innate fear of, like, if this doesn't work out, I'm not going to embarrass myself and tell all these people I'm working on this. So I actually also had my real estate license at the time. So I was, like, at Berkshire Hathaway and at Restoration Hardware while, like, working on developing this fabric. And I'm trying to think. Then as soon as I went on that Hawaii trip, I kind of had to like quit everything else and go full time. But yeah, I didn't really tell that many people just because I've seen so many brands fail, and I just didn't want to pump myself out. And even my launch event, like so many people were like, oh my gosh, I had no idea you were even starting this. This is so cool. But I think that was just my personal way of doing it that way. I mean, obviously, and I think it came from mentioning it to some people that weren't super supportive, and then being like, good luck, there's so many other swim lines out there, it won't work. Like, so many people were kind of discouraging in that way, so I was like, forget it, I'm not telling anyone else. I'm just gonna like do my thing so I don't pivot and give up on the idea. But I wouldn't say I had the best supportive system. And then my family or at the time they were living in Italy, and so I didn't really have a support system there necessarily. And then my brother lives in Tennessee, and he also started a brand. So it's cool to like be able to talk to him about it. But truly, I kind of went in on it by myself. Yeah.
I mean, I feel like there's, of course, pros and cons to every experience, right? Like, I think there is something to be said about like hustling in silence and keeping that part of your life sacred until it's a thing. Because even as you're saying now, with having a brand, people will copy whatever's cool and whatever's dope. And the fact that you were able to like have that experience sacred to you is beautiful. But I also am curious, like, if there are people listening, like girls listening right now, like what sort of advice would you tell them, or would you tell your younger self about a community if they're wanting to start something from ground up? Like, what is something that you wish you would have had when it comes to community or support?
I would say, first off, I think a lot of people think they need to be super prepared before they start something, which in my case, I wasn't at all. Didn't have a fashion background, like didn't have any sewing background, like just basics. I didn't really have that many basic.
Wait, so did you just like literally take a needle and a thread and like?
No, so no, oh my gosh. But I did make my prom dress in high school.
Oh, that's so cute.
And it like unraveled, didn't end up wearing it, like horrible experience. But like you don't need to be an expert in everything to, build a brand or build a product. Like you don't even need to be an expert in that product necessarily. So I would say just like starting and not delaying because you're scared of, the judgment or the resources that you don't have or the knowledge. Like just start, like look up YouTube tutorials on how to do something, or, talk to some manufacturer in China on Alibaba. Like there's so many ways you can just start. And people are like, oh, I need to make, this amount of money before I can risk everything just so I'm like secure. I think if you're really passionate about starting your own thing, like don't wait. And as far as the support system, I mean, it really depends. Like at the time, like I said, I had recently moved and I had a smaller circle of friends, and I didn't really talk about it with that many people.
Why don't you think, like, what do you think was holding you back from opening up? Do you think it was a fear of failing and judgment?
I think I'm just one of those people that likes to silently do things and like be good at it versus, talk all about it and then like seeing no result.
I respect that.
I
really
think
respect
it's just
that.
a turn off for me to see people like, oh, I'm so good at tennis, and then you play tennis with them, and they're like terrible. Like, you shouldn't have said anything, and then I could have made that judgment for myself.
Exactly.
So I think that's just one of my, just how I went about it, and like I said, I didn't want to make it a huge deal and then get zero sales out of it, because like I said, I did not know where it would go, and I truly did not think that going viral on TikTok would like support my life and like allow me to do so many things. So
wow,
it's really crazy.
I mean, thank God, like, I mean, when the whole ban about TikTok was percolating, like it's a really powerful platform, And even for me, like I've had a couple of posts that have gone viral.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because like you wake up one day and you're like, fuck, like
Yeah.
36 million people. Like if
Yeah.
you put all of those people in a room, that's a lot of fucking
It's a
people.
lot of people.
And like you have their attention.
Yeah.
Like they're looking at your product. They're looking at you.
Right.
And I think for me, like hearing you speak, like I'm learning so much because there are parts of me, like as a girl, I think it's really easy for us to get super excited about projects and opportunities, but it's like, let's think about this. Like
Especially
maybe
living in LA, like
right.
everyone's always, you know, talking about the next thing that they want to do with you or you know,
Yeah.
build something together and like.
But like put your money where your mouth is and just props to you, Isa. It's pretty spectacular. And I think we were speaking on the phone and I do want to touch on this because I think this ties back into like living in LA and clout and starting a business and being successful, or even talking about which party or event you got invited to. Like I hear this all the time. Or like you don't really see it actually happening. And I'm just curious to hear, like I know that you mentioned when you went viral, when you were in Hawaii, like all of your girlfriends just surrounded you to support you. That's freaking cool and rare.
Yeah.
Like 10 of your girlfriends,
I think they were just like amazed. They're like, oh my gosh, we didn't think you were gonna do that well. Like we obviously believed in you, but not to that extent. So yeah, that was a really cool moment, you know, having all these friends like in my warehouse all together, like working on it essentially. And I think they all felt part of it, which was cool. Yeah, I mean, that was huge. And then obviously built out my team from there, but
it's pretty insane that your girlfriends got behind you because, I don't know, just living here and obviously you having a following, I'm curious to see, like, you know, because this, you launching and going live with this was kind of a shock to a lot of the people in your community. Like, how did you navigate through kind of like compliments and attention? Like, walk me through that.
Yeah, I don't take I don't know how to say this. I'm like not the person in the room to be very boastful, or I'm very
like, look at me.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think like my friends would do that for me, and like talking to people, they'd be like, "Oh my gosh, like Isa, you don't know Isa? Like she did New York Fashion Week, like, you know, like stuff like that." So I think that's fun to see when, you know, friends are proud of you in that way. But yeah, I kind of like to stay low key and do my thing and do the things that I love. I'm not trying to go to all the A-lister parties all the time, you know, like I am a private person at the same time. So I think I just have learned to balance everything. And I love to travel. So I have like my group of friends that I do all my traveling with and my shoots with. And
so fun.
Yeah, and Orange County is a very special place where I'm able to do that. LA would be probably a different story. But yeah, I think just finding a group of people that's truly supportive and not jealous, because I've also lost friends during this whole process of, you know, people being, I don't know, maybe they started their own thing and saw what I was doing and kind of just let that relationship die because their idea
it's too much for them.
Right. So, I mean, that'll happen regardless of, you know, even dating someone might cause you to lose good friends. So whenever there's a change, people don't necessarily love change in what you're doing. So
it is interesting, like looking, because I've had this experience before. I think we all have as girls and just as humans, but when you like almost surpass someone's like expectation of success that they have for you, it's threatening to them. And it's like you're either going to experience people who take that experience or your success and they can't handle it, or like, even I think we were on the phone and you were sharing this to me, but people who like you weren't close with in the past. Yeah. Like being like, hi, like remember me? And it's like, really?
I know. Or even having the same amount of time you had for certain people prior to starting whatever you started.
Yeah.
That's definitely been tricky of like, I need to be gone a month. Like, obviously I'm not going to be as present with certain friends. But I really, especially now that I'm not as hands-on, I'm able to, you know, have my time with my friends and family. And Yeah, so it's all a balance. I mean, obviously you're gonna have periods of time where you need to grind and not be at every single social event. So it's definitely, it's a risk. It's, you have to experience FOMO a little bit. You can't have it all. So it's definitely hard work. Like, it's not as much as it sounds easy sometimes. It's part of it's timing, part of it's luck, part of it's, so many factors.
And I want to point this out to girls listening, is that, like, it's not like you just were doing this in school. Like, you had multiple jobs. And then when the time where it made sense that came up was like, okay, I went viral and, like, this is when I can start making money. But, like, it was almost calculated, and it was all about timing. It's not like you weren't working and this thing just fell into your lap. Like, I think when we look at your profile, of course we don't see all of the dirty work that was happening beforehand. And I just, like, want to normalize that.
Yeah. There's definitely a lot of work behind, every idea and everything. But yeah, I honestly thought I'd have to juggle multiple jobs for a while because, like I said, I used all my money to risk taking this leap, and it was the best decision of my life, truly.
I needed to hear this today because sometimes I'm like, oh my God, I'm investing so much money and energy into this. I'm like, but, like, when your body knows, and, like, I feel like you probably had this experience, but I think what it is like, if you're waking up in the morning, if you're going to bed, if you can't concentrate at work, and, like, when you're doing it, you're in flow, and, like, every single cell in your body is like, yes, this is what I'm supposed to be doing on planet Earth.
So true.
It's like, then you gotta do it.
Yeah, I would do it all over again. And there's not that much I would really change about how I
that's a great question.
Things. Yeah. Because, like I said, I thought I wanted to do hotel management. Like, that was I was even going to do schooling for it. And, I just never thought I'd enter. I always loved fashion, but I never thought, like I said, I had no experience in any of it. So I was like, Like, I admire the people that are in the business, but it's probably not for me.
Yeah. It's brutal. I'm also curious. I mean, obviously, social media is where everyone markets and brands themselves, and that's really how we create community and, sales as well. This has been challenging for me, and I feel like I'm speaking on behalf of every single girl listening to this podcast right now, but feeling like you are not good enough, you are not doing enough, you are not on the right path because you are on social media and constantly being hijacked by what everyone else is doing, what everyone else's success looks like. How have you, my love, been able to be like, eyes straight on my path? Does not matter what anyone else is doing besides me and True Tone.
That's a hard one. I think everyone deals with that no matter where they are in life. Like, I think everyone deals with or struggles with that. Social media is tricky. I know a lot of people, breaks work for them really well. I personally haven't done that. I should. It's hard, especially this summer. I haven't really traveled as much as I typically would. So it's been hard to see everyone, on these crazy vacations and all of my favorite places. But I would say, obviously, like, the group you surround yourself with has a huge impact on all these people too that are posting. Obviously, you have to take it with a grain of salt. Like, they're having a great time, but they're also risking other stuff and having FOMO about the people that are back home having a good time. Like, everyone's feeling a certain way about another group that's doing a different thing that seems more fun. And I don't know. I think I used to struggle with that a lot more, I would say. But I think you just learn to create those fun memories with your friends. Like, it doesn't have to be always a comparison. Like, just make your own amazing memories with the people close to you. And I think that does it for me. Yeah. But it's tricky. I mean, like, LA, so hard to find solid girlfriends, I'm sure. So it's all learning lesson,
Isa, So I know that we just talked about like comparison when it comes to friends, social, FOMO, all of that, but I also do think there's also like career FOMO or entrepreneurial FOMO where, you know, you're scrolling on Instagram and you're seeing all of these brands, whether they are competitors, like for me, other podcasters, or even people with amazing brands, and I'm so excited and happy for them, but it's also on the same like side of things. It's challenging because it is like, oh my gosh, they're at this success level, I'm only at this metric. Like, how have you been able to navigate that with having competitors or other swimwear lines or bikini brands? Like, how have you been able to keep eyes on self when looking at social media?
I think since my product is tan through, there's not as much competitiveness if I were to do a regular swim line. But at the same time, I dealt with a lot of dupes and copycats and like other things that other brands might not deal with if they went with something more mainstream. So yeah, and that was like a terrible time where I would see ads of myself pop up all the time, and like get them sent to me. So that was super frustrating. But as far as dealing with competitors and that sort of comparison, like obviously we're all gonna do it, but I look at it as like learning from these people that I look up to. Obviously there's brands that I look up to and like get inspired from, or photographers I get inspired from. So yeah, I wouldn't look at it as, there's obviously pros and cons with that, you know? So like you can learn a lot from them, but there's an in-between of don't dwell on how well someone else is doing, because that can just be a black hole. I think, yeah, it's really tricky. I don't have like, you know, the formula to like get over comparison, but I think if you love what you're doing and see success from it, it's obviously easier. But I think even maybe reaching out to these people and like maybe they'll answer back and like have suggestions for you on your journey. And like I think social media is great in the way that you can communicate people that like you wouldn't have access to without it. So yeah, maybe reaching out to the brand and seeing if you could intern with them to learn from them, and instead of being jealous of what they're doing.
Yeah, like do something with that energy.
Right. There's so many huge brands even during fashion weeks that are like, we need interns, or whether it's paid or unpaid. Like I remember my first hotel job, I went in and they weren't hiring, and I was like, I really want to work for you guys. I'm willing to work for free. Like, please have me on your team. And this is like at a small Marriott. Like this is my first job, and because I said that, they hired me. They obviously had to pay me legally, but when I said that, they're like, wow, she really wants like this job. So I think, yeah, people will notice if you're passionate about something. So I think there's just opportunities everywhere. But yeah, comparison is definitely tricky. You know, I see obviously brands all the time that are doing all these amazing pop-ups. Like I was just in New York and saw all these pop-ups, and I was like, oh, I would love to do it out here. So I don't know, everyone's able to do it.
I really like that. And I think instead of like getting stuck in this cloud of jealousy, because it's so easy for all of us to get there as human beings, it's like, how can I take that energy and instead use that as gas, as fuel to go after my dreams and like make it flipping happen? And I love what you said is like, babes, just start it. Like whether it is posting that one TikTok a day or going to the beach and journaling, like mapping it all out, like that is starting it. And you can be working 2 jobs like you were, or like I am right now, and do it. It's just getting the wheels turning and putting in the work to that momentum, because you never know when you can wake up one morning and be like, whoa, this is when I can do it full time. And like, that is what I'm continuing to do. So seeing you as a woman and being able to like sit in front of you and see your success story and like learn from you, like I could so easily sit here in Isa and be like, I'm so jealous of her, like, and get into the jealous cloud.
Totally.
But instead, like, it's a choice. I'm deciding to look at you and like I'm energized by you.
No, it's definitely a choice. I mean, you can choose to watch podcasts and learn from how they ask questions in a certain way versus being like, oh, how did they get that celebrity on their podcast? You know, there's so many ways of looking at things. And it's tough. Like, it's not easy. No. And it's different for everyone. Like, yeah.
I think I like a couple more questions for you, but I think this is really important. And I've been thinking about this concept a lot of like hope versus believe, right? Mm-hmm. And hope is like pretty passive, like sitting on a couch, like I really hope this happens. And I think believe is really, it's an action. It's believing in yourself that it is going to happen and like you are going to take the steps to get yourself there. Mm-hmm. So for girls listening to this, like what is your advice around creating just like self-assurance and a belief in yourself that you are capable? Like if you could pull from your experience.
A lot of it has to do with confidence. So, I mean, that's such a personal thing that everyone is able to do differently. I think I grew up in a certain way where, you know, my parents embedded in me that I was capable of doing, you know, anything. And I saw my brother build a huge successful food company. Wow. And I think I looked at that and I was like, wow, it's so possible. Like he created so many other brands before that completely failed. And then I just looked at what he built now and I'm always in awe of what he's doing and look what other people are doing. So yeah, I'm trying to think. I think surrounding with yourself again with people that are supportive versus people that kind of feed in negative energy and like jealous energy, and listening to podcasts that kind of give you, I mean, I remember all these drives going back and forth to LA to, you know, Fashion District, everything, meetings. I would always listen to podcasts that kind of inspired me to keep going. Oh no, absolutely. Like I needed that reassurance of you can do it, because everyone needs that a little bit, you know? Even if you're doing well, like you still need someone or a voice or something to
little hype woman.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously, everyone grows up different, and I grew up very also independent and lived on my own since I was 12 because I went to boarding school, so that's another side note.
Whoa, okay, that makes sense.
But yeah, so I've been very independent since. So I think that all contributed to kind of having to build everything by myself. So, which is so many other people out there, you know?
But that is what people need to hear. Like, I think because you had the role model, like your brother.
Yeah.
He showed you that it was possible. Mm-hmm. And so that was not like it was normal to you, but you looked up to that and you saw him go through the realness of it all. And you saw that, like, if he's capable of that, you guys share the same blood, like you for sure, you best have it in you.
Yeah. And we both, you know, had the same experience with schooling and like locations we lived. So I was like, okay, if he can do it, like I can definitely do it. So that was definitely a little confidence booster in a way of.
And I want like everyone listening, like if Isa can do it, you can freaking do it.
Exactly.
I can do it.
Yeah. I didn't have a family that, you know, gave me a budget to work on to build it.
Thank you
like,
for telling us that.
I think that's another one that sometimes I look at brands and I'm like, I almost make myself think of an excuse of like, oh, she must have had rich parents and that's why she's successful. But like, that's such a bad way to think of things. And yeah, but obviously that helps, like that could help, but it also could damage, you know, your own self-worth of could I have done it without my parents? So I'm so glad I did it the way I did. And I'm not saying doing it the other way is wrong by any means, but I don't know. I think it's doable any of the ways.
You're freaking real. Thank you for telling us that.
Of course.
Because I think a lot of people make these assumptions to make themselves feel better.
Yeah.
But.
And I do that too.
Me too.
So.
I totally have done that multiple times. Yeah. It's fine.
But you can do it with little money. Like it doesn't take a huge budget to build something.
No, I agree. Okay, I want to welcome you to Syllabus Steps.
Okay.
So this is a time for us to get just a little bit more into the nitty gritty of like any resources, tools, books, podcasts that were supportive in your journey to being an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Like
I
any
have
that
a
come to mind.
whole list of books.
Well, can you give me like 3? You're like, girlfriend.
I'm like trying to think of them. How I Built This is one of them.
Oh, I love. You can even just like send me and I can
let me send them
notes.
to you because I can't even think of. But I've definitely, like, whenever I'm reading a book, it's always like an entrepreneurial book or a business book, and my friends always make fun of me because they're over there reading all their like fairy fictional ones. I don't even know the names of them, but it's so funny.
Like I'm like Court of like Thorns and Roses.
Yes, exactly. And I'm so there with like my business, like
self-help business
accounting book or whatever, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, Issa, we're at the beach. Like, can you enjoy a cutie book?" I'm like, "Sorry, guys, I can't do it." I need to find better podcasts. I feel like I've been out of the
regardless.
I know, right?
Well, no, I can even send you. There's a couple of, like, just powerful ones.
Even YouTube's. I love seeing behind the scenes videos. Because when I did Fashion Week, for example, I had no idea what I was doing. I was like, I need resources to even do set design. Like, I have no idea what I'm doing. But there's resources out there for sure. I love it. But yeah, I love reading books on, you know, people with similar journeys and kind of picking their brains on.
Helpful.
I'm trying to think. I'll send you a list.
Send me a list. Yeah, that would be super helpful. Yeah. And then fill in the blank. I love to end every Regardless episode with you really coming into your own like affirmation and statement, because this word has used to like literally become a mindset shift for me where if I feel like I'm getting in my own way or like the fear cloud is coming in of like failing or not being successful, especially when it comes to business, it's like regardless of whether or not this brand is successful, like I'm learning so much from this conversation. Like this is a database of tools, of resources for me and like my future daughter. And like if I can just hold on to that, that's beautiful.
Oh, it's amazing.
And I loved like how you also did that with, you know, if I'm investing into this, I can get another job, like really being in this abundance mindset. So I would love for you to share really like your Regardless affirmation with our audience. So when they're going off and maybe starting their own project, they can kind of remember this. So fill in the blank.
Okay.
You're like, shit.
I'm like,
And you can like take a couple of seconds to think of it.
Okay, perfect.
But regardless of blank, I am blank. You're like, fuck.
Regardless of the outcome, I'm still capable. Yeah. I love that. Yeah.
Lisa, this was kick-ass, girl.
Oh, I'm glad you think so.
New episodes drop every Monday on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube.